All right, big kids, it is week 5, day 3. We're going to talk a little bit about reading here. Today, we're going to talk about analogies. I love a good analogy. And an analogy is a kind of comparison in which two words are compared to another two set of words. The first two sets of words have a relationship, and then you have to try to figure out what the relationship is for the other two. That sounds really complicated. I know sometimes kids are like, what? What are you talking about? And sometimes it helps if we were to do something like this. If I was to say, let's just look. The example that they give us is win is to lose, as succeed is to what? And so if we were to say, sometimes to do this, it helps if you draw something called a bridge map, and it looks like this. And the bump, when you get to the bump, you say the words just as. Okay? So on this one, I would say when, and then when I go to when, and then we say the relating factor, win, lose, succeed, and then fail. So if we look at just the relationship between win and lose, win is the same as lose? No. Oh, some of you are like, hey, it's the opposite. Yeah, let's look. Win is the opposite of lose, just as succeed is the opposite of fail. Hey, that's cool. That works. What if I continued it on? So the relating factor are the words that you see in between. So like when we say win is to lose, instead of saying is to, win is the opposite of lose. So if I said is the opposite. So when I read it, I would say win is the opposite of lose, just as succeed is the opposite of fail. Now, what if we continued this same analogy and I were to say tall? So we'd say just as. So I'd say win is the opposite of lose, just as succeed is the opposite of fail, just as tall is the opposite of, now don't say small, because big is the opposite of small. What's the opposite of tall? Somebody is very tall, or they could be, what's the opposite of that? If you said short, you got it. Cool. Awesome. So what we have to do when we're making analogies, we want to see what the relationship is to the words that are being compared. So now let's dive back over here really quick. So when we study the analogy, then it says to write the two pairs of words and finally write the analogy. So it says egg is to shell as orange is to peel. So the pairs of words, the two words that we're talking about first is egg and shell. That's the first pair of word, right? And the next one is orange and peel. Well, how does egg and shell work? We could say egg has a shell just as orange has a peel. So the relationship is has, right? We can even say has a. So egg has a shell just as orange has a peel, right? Or some people are like, wait, that's the covering. The shell is the covering of the egg and the peel is the covering of the orange. So you could say egg. So we could also say is covered. Is covered by a shell just as orange is covered by a peel. So either one of these would work. So you could have has a, or you could have is covered by. Either one works. Let's look at our next one. Glass is to window as metal is to dime. So how are glass and window related? So let's put glass. And then metal and dime. So how are they related? What's the relationship between glass and window? Well, glass is used to make a window, just as metal is used to make a dime. So I could say is used to make, right? Or is the material for a glass is the material for a window, just as metal is the material for a dime. Yeah, that would work too. I'm gonna let you go ahead and finish the last ones here on your own. Can be a little tricky. Just ask yourself, when I say find and lose, so if you find something and you lose something, are those the same, or how are they related? And then warm is to cool. So then you'll go and tell me, how are those two words related? Okay, and hat is to head as belt is to waist. So then you'll tell me the relationship there. Cool? You got this. I know you got this. When you are done with this, we're going to talk a little bit about cause and effect. Remember, cause is what makes something happen. So the cause is like the beginning of the incident, and then the effect is what happens because of it. So this happens, and then the effect is what happens because of it. So on page 352, the cause isn't there, but it says the effect. Surviving became harder as timber approached the summit. So what caused that to be harder? What made it harder? And then you're going to write those causes in here. Okay, so on page 352, you'll look on there and said breathing becomes nearly impossible. Why is breathing nearly impossible? That would be the cause. So you'll fill that out here. So the cause is why something happens, and the effect is what happens. So the air is thin at the summit on page 352. So what happens? So you'll continue on with these. Okay, cool. And that is your reading for the day. Make sure that you are reading the story, though. Please make sure you're reading the story and check your page numbers. I know these page numbers are a little different than the page numbers at the top of your Think Central page. So I appreciate how you are being problem solvers and scrolling to the bottom of the page on Think Central to make sure that you find the correct page they're referencing here. I also want to make sure that you're thanking the adults who are helping you at home, because this is not easy for them. And they already went to third grade, so you want to make sure that you are thanking them for helping you get through third grade too. Thanks.